The letter arrived in early October, slipped beneath the creaking front door of Diane Keaton's Los Angeles home. No stamp, no sender, only her name, written in faded blue ink. She almost tossed it aside with the usual fan mail and charity flyers, until she noticed something odd. The handwriting was hers, or at least it looked like hers from decades ago. The same looped D, the impatient K that trailed off as though she'd been laughing mid-signature. Inside, a single line. For what you left behind, Roaring Camp, October 10. No address, no instructions, just those words. She hadn't heard that name in 40 years. Roaring Camp. It was supposed to be a film set, a doomed production in the spring of 1979, tucked away in the pine-thick hills of the Sierra Nevada, a Western romance that never finished shooting because tragedy had shut it down, because she'd walked away. Diane folded the letter once, twice, then again until it was a paper square she could crush in her palm. But the words burned anyway, whispering through memory like wind through cracked shutters. That night, she dreamt of rain falling on a wooden sign, half-rotted, painted with the words, Roaring Camp. The letters trembled, as if alive. 3 days later, Diane drove north. Her agent had called twice. "You're trending again, Di. What's this about a comeback?" And she had ignored him. She packed a notebook, her old Leica, a black turtleneck, and enough coffee to survive a ghost story. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. If she'd learned anything in 78 years, it was that some things only make sense when you face them alone. The road narrowed after Nevada City. Ponderosa pines leaned inward, their branches like arms trying to block the way. The last turn brought her face to face with a sign she thought she'd never see again. Roaring Camp. Private property. No trespassing. Someone had repainted the letters, but the wood still bore the same axe scar she remembered from the day she left. The camp was quiet, except for the wind and the soft mechanical hum of a generator. A few cabins leaned into the slope like weary drunks. The old mess hall had collapsed, yet the lake, that lake, still mirrored the sky with unnerving stillness. "Mrs. Keaton?" The voice startled her. A woman stood by the dock, wearing a ranger's jacket too big for her. Late 30s, maybe. Bright eyes, cautious smile. "I'm Mara," she said. "Caretaker. You got the letter?" Diane nodded slowly. "Who sent it?" "That's the thing. No one knows. The camp's been abandoned for years, but every October, someone or something leaves envelopes in the old mailbox. Yours was different." Inside the main lodge, a fire burned, though no one seemed to tend it. Dust motes drifted through sunlight like tiny ghosts. On the mantel, a reel-to-reel tape recorder sat waiting, its spool empty. "Found this when I got here last night. Figured it belonged to you." Diane ran a hand over the recorder. Her throat tightened. Her husband, Tom, had used the same model. He'd been the cinematographer on Roaring Camp. He died during that shoot. She turned away before Mara could see her eyes. That night, Diane couldn't sleep. She walked the camp paths, her breath fogging in the cold. The wind moved through the trees in waves, a low, resonant hum that almost sounded like voices. When she returned to her cabin, the recorder was running. She froze. The reels spun, though no one had touched them. A man's voice crackled through the static. "You shouldn't have come back, Di." She spent 3 weekends at the camp,
alone with the ghost of Tom, who'd left for a brief run and never returned.
Over the next 2 days, Mara helped her search the camp. They found old film canisters buried beneath the cabin floorboard, rusted, unlabeled, their edges eaten by time. Diane insisted on playing one. They projected it onto the mess hall wall using a dusty old reel they'd scavenged. The film jittered to life. Young Diane, laughing in black and white, Tom behind the camera. And there, the lake, the set, the other actor, Eddie Cole. He'd been 24, brilliant, fragile, unpredictable. He was also the reason production had ended. The night of the accident, the thunderstorm, the stunt gone wrong. Diane had screamed at him for ruining a take, stormed off set, and moments later, the lightning struck. He'd fallen from the ridge. No one had blamed her, not officially, but she'd blamed herself. For 40 years. On the film, Eddie looked right at the camera. "Cut the scene, Di," he said, smiling. "You're shaking." Then static. The film burned through the reel, curling in on itself. "Maybe that's why you're here. To finish the story," Mara said softly. Diane looked at her, startled. "You knew him?" "No, but my mother did. She was the camp nurse back then." The wind outside picked up. The lake began to ripple. Somewhere in the dark, a door slammed. That evening, the power failed. Candles flickered in the main hall. The lake roared, really roared, a deep, guttural sound, like thunder trapped in water. Diane screamed for Diane to come outside. Across the lake, the lights of the old set blazed to life. The saloon facade, the hitching posts, the false storefronts, all glowing like a film shoot resurrected. And in the middle of it stood a man, his silhouette unmistakable. Eddie. "Don't go," Mara begged, but Diane was already moving, boots splashing into the shallows, heart pounding. As she reached the opposite bank, the world seemed to shift. The air thickened. The lake looked new again. And there was Tom, behind the camera. And Eddie, waiting on the porch. And herself, young, radiant, alive. "Action," Tom's voice said. The scene replayed. Every word, every motion exactly as it had been that night. Only now, Diane stood watching herself, powerless, as lightning split the sky. The younger her turned, furious. "You never listen, Eddie." He grinned, reckless. "Then make me." The thunder cracked. Eddie climbed the ridge. Diane screamed, "Don't!" But the moment froze. And then slowly, the younger version of her turned toward the real Diane. Her eyes met hers, tired, meeting terrified, and she whispered, "Say it." "What?" Diane gasped. "Say it before the storm takes him again." And Diane understood. It wasn't forgiveness she'd come for. It was truth. She stepped forward, rain in her hair, the world trembling around her. "I was afraid," she said aloud. "Afraid you'd outshine me. Afraid I wasn't enough. And I let that fear kill everything that mattered. I'm sorry." The younger her smiled sadly. Eddie's figure turned, alive now, real, and for a heartbeat, he nodded, as if hearing her. Then, lightning struck.
The set went dark. When she woke, she was lying in the mud beside Mara, rain still falling. The camp was half underwater, cabins creaking, trees snapping in the wind. "Help!" someone shouted, one of the other caretakers, trapped inside a collapsing shed. Without thinking, Diane ran. The roof groaned as she pushed through the door, dragging the man free seconds before it caved in. Pain shot up her arm, a cut, deep but clean. Blood, rain, and adrenaline blurred together. They reached the lodge as dawn broke. The lake was calm again. The camp was silent. No lights, no voices, no sign of the set. Mara stared at her. "It's over." Diane looked around. The old sign had washed free of its post, floating near the dock. She waded in, pulled it ashore, and set it upright again. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Mara said, "You found what you came for." Diane smiled faintly. Maybe it found me. She reached into her coat and pulled out something impossible. A single, dry page, written in her old handwriting. Roaring Camp, Scene 9, Redemption. Fade in on morning light. It was the final scene she'd never written.
3 years later, Diane Keaten stood on a small stage at the Telluride Film Festival. Her film, Roaring Camp, had just finished its premiere. The audience was silent, many in tears. The final shot had shown her standing by the lake, older now, eyes steady. The sound design had been simple: wind through pines, water lapping, a faint, distant roar. She looked out over the crowd, smiled the way only Diane Keaten could, half tremble, half defiance. "You know," she said, "we spend half our lives running from the stories that made us. But if you're lucky, really lucky, you get to go back and finish the last scene." Applause filled the hall, rolling like thunder. Outside, the Colorado sky cracked open with sudden sunlight. And for just a moment, Diane thought she heard it again, that low, eternal sound, not of guilt, but of grace. The roar.
To enjoy more haunting tales like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps this channel grow and brings you deeper into the mystery. Turn on the bell so you never miss a moment of suspense.